Hello, you freaks, come closer. It is Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's time for the handy dandy spandy show that everybody talks about at the water cooler on Friday. It's Hey, did you see this one? I totally meant to say, come closer, freaks, like we were talking about Steve, and I just fell on my face, but...
I couldn't remember what I said either. I was like, what was it that I said again?
Something about get in here, get closer, freaks. Anyway,
Yeah.
That's what our fans are called now. You're our freaks. Welcome to Hey, Did You See This One? It is still Hack the Planet month, and your host for this evening is the Cage Man. Hello, Kaylin. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, hi. Let's sneak on in here and get this party started. I'm always sneaking into places, which is what really drew me to this movie.
Did you pick this movie?
Yes, I picked this movie. Oh, yeah. So I don't know who picked like the hacker theme, but like I did a quick little search of like hacker movies, and so there was a decent number of movies, some of them that I've seen. This one came up. I've never seen of it, never heard of it, and there's names in it. I was like, oh, let me add this to the list. Let me put this in the pile. Let me put my 2 cents in, and this was it.
Now, before we get into the body and the movie, and you are the host, Kaylin, and I recognize that, I just want to say that this movie is like if hacking as an art form or as any form didn't exist. Like if it had never, like if hacking didn't exist in our universe and you had to like still break into computer systems with hilariously analog methods. So just to preface, this is technically a hacker movie. And that's sort of what I'm going to be, that's going to be my jump off for.
Analog hacking, okay, is what you're saying?
Right.
But I mean, the device is also the MacGuffin or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into the show. You're the host. I'll stop being a host.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Hey, did you see this one? We're checking out Sneakers. As always, with my fellow hosts, Jason and Steven. I guess we'll start off with our first experiences with this movie. And I'm going to steal the show and start myself. My first experience was on the weekend. And a word that comes to mind is convoluted. I like to watch movies again for multiple reasons. But like this one, I had to watch again. But not for a good reason. And I feel bad saying that because I feel like there's so much that there were some good moments and there's so much that could have been good, but I feel like it missed the mark somehow. But yeah, this past weekend and then Monday and then again today was my first time watching it. And let's give it over to Steven. Tell us about your first experience with this movie.
I also had never heard of this movie, and I remember when you pitched it, I looked it up and I was like, what? The name is kind of like a cutesy sounding name, like Sneakers, like they're going to be sneaky or they're going to be, walking around like cartoon characters. So I wasn't sure. I didn't know what to think when I saw the cast, and I was like, why have I never heard of this movie? It's such a huge cast. Like every single one of these people, it's not like they were cutting their teeth on this movie. These people were all very well known before this movie came out. I think the reason is because the movie's kind of boring. That's why I've never seen it before or heard of it. But the first time that I saw it was today. And I don't know. I started asking other people, like, have you ever heard of this movie, Sneakers? And even some of my most film literate friends were just like, what? Sidney Poitier, Dan Aykroyd, what is this?
Hey, did you see this one?
Exactly. But yeah, I would say it's a little too heady in terms of concept. It's not necessarily high concept. It's just kind of like weird, and it's a little bit hard to track everything that's happening in the movie unless you're like really paying attention to every single thing that they say. And I gotta say, there's a couple of conversations in this movie where I was like, "Don't go on TikTok. Stay off TikTok." Because I knew that if I just stopped paying attention, I would be completely and utterly lost.
Yep.
But you know, I hung on and I was able to get through it, and I'm pretty sure everything made sense to me in the end. Yeah, first time watching it today.
Very nice, very nice.
Over to you, Jason.
Hey, it's me, Jason, from before.
You freak.
You freak. Gather around, freaks. I had to okay, so I watched the first hour of this movie in one sitting. I was like, I'm gonna get through an hour. I was immediately like, it's a long-winded way to tell this story. Then there's a pretty significant twist right in the middle of the movie, and then I specifically broke it up into 2 more half-hour chunks just because I wanted to get I wanted to get the most of it, and I wanted to enjoy it as much as I could. Because if I tried to watch this movie all the way through, I fucking would have been like, as well.
You just have to not do it, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to give, because like fundamentally this is a good movie, but like it's got so many issues that keep it from being a great movie, and those issues that keep it from being a great movie sink it a bit down into that, like, I don't know if I'll ever need to watch this movie again, but just because like it didn't really get much out of it, even though here's the best way that I sort of described it. I'll bring it up again in my final thoughts, but this movie would have fucking ruled ass in 1992 if I was 38 years old. You know what I mean?
It's definitely like a dad movie.
It's a dad movie. It's got that weird like political like edge tinge to it that like a lot of movies nowadays don't have as much, unless they're like political thrillers, you know. It does it like so many things all at the same time. It has almost as many concepts as it does fucking actors in the movie. Like nobody in this movie is an unknown. Like maybe at the time, like nobody really knew who Donald Logue was, because he was clearly a child in this movie. He's clearly like 25 in this movie, but everybody else was like all had crazy careers. That other redhead dude that I mentioned in our chat, the guy that was in like everything in the 90s, who kind of looks like Richard Dreyfuss.
Timothy,
guy, like the agent guy.
Yeah. Timothy something or other.
Timothy
Chalamet, shimmy ya, shimmy ya.
Shimmy ya. So that dude was in, the first time I ever saw him was in fucking the Skateboard Kid, the Skateboard That Comes Alive movie. And ever since then, I noticed him in like everything.
You mean the one starring Dom DeLuise as a skateboard?
Yeah. Hey kid, stop riding me around. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I think the best way to go about it is watch this thing in chunks, and that's how I did it over the course of the last couple days. And I'd never heard of it. I don't know how. I've never heard of this movie. I don't know how. It seems like this cast is crazy. Like River Phoenix was only in like 10 movies.
Yeah, this was probably one of his last movies.
I feel like he was. Let's make this night almost somewhat of a freestyle night. Let's not go off the rails, but let's not necessarily follow the regular beat by beat kind of thing. I felt like River Phoenix was underutilized.
He was underutilized. Side note about him, he looks nothing like Joaquin Phoenix. Nothing. They look nothing alike. Crazily. Yeah. Even though they're
maybe when Joaquin was younger, they looked more similar, perhaps.
Do you think if River was still alive today, he'd have a fucking...
He'd be in an MCU movie or some bullshit.
Oh, definitely. But the thing is, Joaquin Phoenix was when he was cast as in Gladiator, Artemis Aurelius or whatever is the fucking, what's the name of that character?
I don't know, the Emperor.
The Emperor. He has very Roman features, right? He fucking was perfect for that role. But the thing about River Phoenix is he looks like a teen heartthrob. Also, on that note, I noticed, I don't think I've ever seen a Robert Redford movie all the way through. This is my first time. Yeah, I don't think.
What about what's that castle one?
Doubtful.
Last Castle, I think.
What about Captain America: Civil War or whatever?
Oh,
or whatever.
He's like
he's in the Winter
agent,
Soldier.
right?
He's like the bad guy. Yeah.
Okay.
What about Spy Game with Brad Pitt?
I haven't seen Spy Game. But what I wanted to say about him here is he almost bridges the gap from the old school Hollywood hunk face into the more modern looking Hollywood hunk face. You know,
he's
what I mean?
The missing link.
He's got Humphrey Bogart jaw, fucking Leo DiCaprio eyes.
Right.
So dreamy. Did you guys notice like the opening credits were like kind of scrambled and then they rearranged them or whatever? At first I was like, what is going on here? Like it was almost like hurting my brain a little bit.
I just read it perfectly because I have dyslexia.
Nice.
I actually was like, oh great, letters on a black background, and then it showed a 4:3 like flashback to
The full
1969.
Yeah, which I kind of liked because they used to do that in old movies to specifically in this time period too, to signify that it was the past, you know.
Yeah,
but
I
also do like that transition between, you know, this vision of the past to it being on a TV monitor, like a 4:3 TV monitor.
The static or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. Like the snowstorm
awesome
turning into
yeah.
a snowy TV screen,
Yeah.
which was an interesting and creative cut. Not something
Yeah.
that I can say for the rest of the movie.
No, this movie, in my opinion, is two movies. It's the first half is like a standard like mystery thriller, kind of showing off all the like things we can do as like heist people. Second half of the movie is like the movie where they just go and do the big heist.
They have to stop the bad guy from doing the
guy
bad
from doing
thing.
And we don't get nearly enough. Ben Kingsley's character in this is like 80s dickhead, and I wanted more of just
complete
him
with like culturally inappropriate haircut.
Yeah, and just
Like, hold on.
unknown accent.
His gray pattern reminded me of my gray pattern.
Yeah, you should grow your hair out a little bit and get a tiny ponytail, like every bad guy in the 80s had. I know this movie's from 92, but fuck 92 was still the 80s, man.
Yeah, that's how every decade has its growing pains.
Like
before it carves out its own identity.
Like the girl's hair, Lisa, is that her name? Liz? Yeah, her hair was the most 80s fucking holdover hair.
Did you guys notice the was it the courthouse or whatever from Back to the Future was the building they were in the opening scene?
Oh, was
in the
it?
past?
That's cool. Did you watch any form of like did you do any of your usual like research for this movie? Did you
The only thing I found was the building thing from Back to the Future, and I guess Mother, aka Dan Aykroyd, was wearing Aleka's Attic or something like that, band shirt, which I guess is River Phoenix's band or something.
Cool. That would play at like the Viper Room. Johnny Depp would be there, and
they didn't name drop where he died.
Sorry, I mean that's where he would also play shows.
Yeah.
Because didn't Johnny Depp own it very, very young or something?
I don't know enough about it to be able to speak on that, but I know that I think that he was there when River Phoenix died.
There's also a conspiracy theory that Leo gave him a hot bag of dope so he would die, and
so that he could become famous.
He could become the boy. Yeah.
I don't know if he needed that.
Well, there's a lot of that conspiracy talk about that group of people of that era, and Leo wanted to be,
Leo would have been so young.
I know, but he wanted to be.
Speaking of conspiracies, how did you guys feel about Mother's character always being on the conspiracy theorists and like?
That wasn't scripted. That was just Dan Aykroyd.
That was just Dan Aykroyd.
He didn't realize the cameras were on.
Yeah, that's just what he thinks in real life, and those conspiracies aren't even that far fetched compared to the ones that exist today. The JFK not dying. I'm pretty sure Jackie O had brain on her. You know, like I'm pretty sure that one's pretty fucked up. But the Pete Rose being framed one is it's not even that far. It's not even that far fetched.
Yeah, it's like that. What was that movie we watched? California with a K.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt keeps dropping these weird conspiracies the whole time, but then we're watching it 20 to 25 years after the fact, and we're just like, these are now proven fact. Some of them. Yeah.
These are no longer just a crazy guy in a van, played by Mel Gibson in
Aykroyd?
a fucking tinfoil hat. Conspiracy,
was
the
good.
movie. We should do a conspiracy month in that, because I just want to watch that nightmare of a movie.
How long did it take you guys to realize that Whistler was blind? It took me a really long time to understand that he was
It
blind.
was at the very beginning when he has the Playboy in Braille.
Yeah, they make.
I want one of those. I
Must
want one
have
of those
missed
just
it.
for the
See,
novelty.
I don't know. I thought I was paying attention, but it took me all the way up until the fact that he was dancing weirdly, and then
Yeah.
right after that, he has those glasses on, and I'm like, I guess he's just wearing those because he thinks they look cool.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, he's people are having to direct him in the right way and stuff. I don't know. I guess I missed it. And so it took me a real 25 minutes before I was like, oh, he's blind. Now I understand.
So
Because then they really get into it. He has got that cool Braille computer that
Yeah.
changes.
The
so he can-
pulsating?
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah.
Whistler was
I
my.
assume that's probably a real thing.
Yeah, I think it is as well. Whistler was almost my favorite. He was the one that had basically had superpowers because his
sonar hearing. or
sonar
whatever.
hearing.
He had the most to do in
He
terms
had the
of
most to do. He was the most
interesting stuff.
He had the best scene in the movie where they had to I don't know if you guys ever watched Survivor, but in Survivor they have this game where you're in this ball and your teammates are all blindfolded and you got to tell them how to lead you through an obstacle course.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, smash right through.
that scene well, this was a little different. That whole sequence where they're telling him, especially the part where they're like, it's gonna be a steep or a slight incline here, and he just fucking smashes into the ground. That was good. Now I found that Martin Bishop, the main character played by Robert Redford, was the most boring kind of
He's the straight man.
They constantly imply that he can do all these amazing things, but really he just talks his way out of things. That's
Yeah,
kind
he's
of
just
his
a
ability.
smooth operator, and he was at this point he was already reaching that sort of Twilight era of you're maybe a little bit too old now to be considered dreamy by younger people.
Yeah,
There's still gonna be the older generation watching this movie being like, oh my god, he was so hot and all those westerns he was in or whatever. But
I kind of got the
definitely
feeling
the
like
least
he didn't really. Sorry.
Definitely the least interesting character. Even the stories that you're supposed to be finding him interesting for, involving his past and stuff, they weren't interesting. The most interesting thing that happens to him is that his dead friend comes back to life in the middle of the movie, and it's not even interesting that it's happening to him. It's just an interesting fact of the movie, right?
Can I just say that I didn't find that to be that apparent when it was first happening, and I got the sense, in my head I was like, is that just the character from the beginning who died in prison? And then when they lay it on real thick towards the end of the third act, where they're like, I can't shoot my friend, you guys shoot him. That's when I finally clued in.
Well, he does the magic trick.
Right. Oh,
right.
yes.
Right away when he's introduced, he does the magic trick.
This movie has so many things in it that we all missed stuff. I didn't even pick up on the.
Well, I missed Braille.
I missed
boobs
the
or
Braille
whatever.
thing. I missed this. I also didn't really pick up on the we were talking in the chat earlier about how there's a sort of a not a direct blackface moment, but you're doing too much. It might be blackface if you do more of what you're doing moment. And
It's a jokey moment between Sidney Poitier and River Phoenix, where River Phoenix, he's the youngest character in the crew, and he's going that extra level for having to do an infiltration mission at night, and he's putting on shoe polish or whatever on his face to camouflage in the dark. And Sidney Poitier walks up and is just like, what the fuck are you doing? and then even River Phoenix is like, oh yeah, I guess this might be a little bit overboard here.
I guess I know how this looks right here.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's a scene I want to go back and rewatch, because it's another one of those I wish this movie was better at letting its moments breathe as well. I have a thing that I say in my final thoughts about this, about how I don't necessarily want this movie to be shorter, but I want it to be snappier. I want the things in the movie to sort of stand out more and breathe and feel more. But it's just one thing to the next. I was trying to pay attention to Dan Aykroyd's acting and his moments, because I'm a fan of Dan Aykroyd. He very much plays Peter in this movie, or Ray stance in this movie. He feels like when he's out of costume at the Curiosity store, Ray stance from
he's
the new movie.
He is basically just playing the same character, but in a different super team or whatever.
Well, I wrote down as well. Like I wrote down this movie's kind of Hackbusters, where they're
What's
all
Hackbusters?
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
they're Ghostbusters, but instead of busting ghosts, they're a group that's hired to infiltrate.
It's like the A Team. It feels like the A Team or something, where each member has their own specific sort of individual power, if you want to call it that, and they're there for very specific reasons. And it works. They do an interesting sort of dynamic between the group because they're all different ages and they have different backgrounds, and they're all technically criminals, I guess. And that was the reason that he put the team together, is that he found all these people that were arrested for very specific things that would help him to accomplish his task as a business owner, which is the group is basically hired by companies to infiltrate and hack and remove information in order to allow those companies to better improve their security, which is a fun concept for a team. They're criminals who are technically committing criminal acts, but they're doing it to turn a profit, not via illegal means. They're doing it at the behest of the companies that are trying to improve their own security. There's a movie that came out a few years ago with Sylvester Stallone that's just like the same concept, except he's like, you hired me to break out of prison, so I'll do it. And he gets arrested and has to break out of a prison, and he just keeps doing it. And the concept of the movie is that he gets put into the most unescapable prison ever created by man or whatever.
I
think there's two of them.
Doesn't The Rock have a similar thing, or is that just a prison escape? Remember The Rock with Sean Connery?
Oh, I thought you meant Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
No.
What movie is that?
It's the
one. The Rock
San
Andreas,
is where Dwayne The Rock Johnson has to keep getting out of earthquakes, and a team hires him to get out of earthquakes. Sorry, that was a bad joke.
Speaking of teams being hired, so like you said, Steve, earlier, there's that nice transition from the past into the present, and they're in the van, they're about to do a job. They set off a smoke alarm, trick the security guard, get into the bank, move some money around. Next day is it doesn't feel very safe here. Let me withdraw it. Lo and behold, the bank hired them to try and rob them, to make sure that they can't be broken into and tweak wherever they need to fix their loose ends. But the reason I bring this up, I had a nice little laugh when he goes to cash his check. He makes a comment, "It's a living," after explaining to the cashier. She looks at the check and was like, "Not a very good one." What a bird!
Yeah, because he he had to steal $175,000 from the bank, but he probably cashed that check for $50K or whatever.
I doubt it was even that much. It was
Yeah,
probably if she's looking at the check and saying not a very good one, it was probably not a lot of money.
And then he had to go split that with his fucking gang of
team. Yeah, it's crew.
Mike Monjo in the chat, who was on the show last week for Hacker, says, "Yeah, but what is Ray without a ghost BJ?" And you're absolutely right, Mike.
Who's to say that there wasn't a ghost BJ in this movie? We don't know that.
They just cut out the full Gettysburg scene in this one instead of leaving a partial segment in. I want the fucking Gettysburg edit of Ghostbusters. Where's that?
I'm sure there's a porn parody you can watch, Jason.
Hold on a second. I have to look it up so I can block it, so I won't have to see it.
Yeah.
And then I'll get my Braille Playboy magazine.
I want. Is that real? I really do want one of those.
I mean, I'm sure it's just the articles. I don't know if there's a way to see porn in Braille.
Or there's why not just raised pictures? Wouldn't raised pictures?
There's a joke in I think it's Robin Hood Men in Tights where Blinken is in the bathroom and he has essentially a three-dimensional Playboy from medieval times or whatever, and he's just touching it, but he's blind, so he doesn't know that anyone's watching him look at porn on the he's on the can.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes, "Oh, it's drafty in here." Something crazy.
Fuck. I haven't seen. That's a movie I watched when I was way too young to be watching those kinds of movies.
Yeah, because our parents were dumb. And
They
they're like,
didn't
you
get
can't
it.
watch violent movies or horror movies, but you can watch this like sexually exploitative movie that just because Mel Brooks made it, it's okay.
Yeah, like the beginning of Look Who's Talking, where Kirstie Alley basically gets essayed by her boss, and then it immediately goes to the fucking
I don't
get
think
her
I don't know if I've
round,
ever
get
seen
her
Look Who's
round.
Talking.
they
So.
get her around, and the fucking sperms are going into.
Oh
the
wait,
fucking
I think
egg.
I do have a very vague memory of this, and it's one of those situations where I think I thought it was a dream, and it wasn't
It's
a dream.
the sperms in the canal are very dreamlike, and
How did they do that? Is what I want to know.
I
That
wanna go
scene
back
has
and-
always stuck with me my whole life.
Puppets, the Jim Henson Company were hired to do that bit.
they have burnt dirty faces on them. I really want to go back and watch the beginning of that because it was so shocking to me when I was a kid. I had to like turn the movie off and go downstairs and be like, I was too young. I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I had to turn it off, and I never really went back and watched it. But as I recall, she gets assaulted. But I don't. It might have been that she was having an affair with her boss, and they just had kind of like a playfully rough interaction.
Speaking of sneakers,
Sorry. It was
Let's sneak our way back into this conversation.
Sneakers way are back. Nope. Okay. Sorry, Kalen.
so I said let's go freestyle. You know what? It's not gonna work for my brain. I'm going back on track.
Okay.
The
Wait,
but we get to their focus.
what the fuck?
What are you waiting for?
The bank teller I thought was an Asian woman in the movie.
Which isn't that was she not?
I'm looking it up, and it's a woman named Denise Dowsey, and she's definitely not Asian.
Maybe it's a wrong thing.
The mind
Maybe,
sees what it
maybe it's
wants
just
to
bad
see.
info or something.
The mind sees what it wants to see.
No, I watched the movie today. I'm pretty sure. Thought she was an Asian woman. Was she not?
Yeah,
thought
that's what I'm
so.
saying. You wanted I don't know where I'm going with this. Kalen, help.
So we go to back to their home base office or whatever. I'm going to call it a home base throughout the episode.
The cool place.
And
I
Yeah.
like that style of headquarters for sure.
loft.
A huge
Very
loft
lofty.
open concept. Yeah. Those
Yeah,
are always
open
great.
concept. That's what I'm talking about. We get Carl played by River with this very weird walk into the would you call it like anxiety or something? Like what is he that doesn't matter, it's not important. But apparently there's some customers and they got some fancy shoes. But they know our lead. You guys were talking about so he's the lead, but he really isn't that cool or anything. And he doesn't actually do anything. He gets everyone else to do things. He's not actually he's like what's that guy's name? Jobs or whatever? He didn't do the shit. The Wiskowski did it or whatever. Wozniak.
What movie are you referring to?
He created the company of Apple. That's why he was in charge of everything.
Oh, Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Yeah, that
Without
happens.
Steve Jobs, then Wozniak's progress would have done nothing.
Exactly. He could have had all the fucking. There's inventors out there that have all kinds of patents that'll never get created because they don't have the ideas guy and the money guy.
That's what I'm saying though. Like he's kind of like that.
Yeah, but without him, their jobs wouldn't get done because
Yeah.
he's the one that makes sure that the jobs are going to get done.
He's fucking. What's that character from the A-Team? Face, nice face. The main guy with the cigar.
I've
Cool.
never been.
Nice face. Face.
I have absolutely no
I've never
idea what you're
watched
talking about.
Quagmire
Like, not
plays
even.
his character in the Family Guy parody.
You talking about the A-Team?
Yeah.
What? What's his name? I think it's is it
Deadeye?
Ace? I think it's or is it Face? Yeah, it is Face.
And Bradley Cooper plays him in the new one? No.
No, Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, yeah. He's Hannibal Face Johnson.
I think they just call him Face because he's like the face of the operation.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Face. John Hannibal
Yeah.
Smith, but they call him Face or whatever.
Yeah, he's the face of the operation.
Face.
Was tracked down the lead though, sends his goons to kind of force him to do a job because it's a little illegal. But we don't know that yet. We think they're NSA. Is it a burn to say I was going to join the NSA, but then I found out my parents were married?
Sorry. I looked it up. Liam Neeson is the leader. He's Hannibal. There is a character called Face that's played by Bradley Cooper, who is the guy that probably goes and is the smooth operator.
He's like the hot guy. Yeah,
the hot guy.
He's the face.
Yeah. Sorry, Kayla. I didn't mean to step all over you, buddy. I love you.
Well,
it's my incredible need to be the host.
okay, so you can host if you want.
No, I don't. I'm done. That's just why I am the way that I am.
No,
it's called narcissism, Kalen. If you look it up, it just describes Jason.
Alphabet.
You were saying that the joke was like, is it a burn that you wanted to join the NSA until you found out your parents were married? Which I didn't really understand what you meant.
I've heard of, I used to have a shirt like that until my parents got a job. I'm assuming it's like along those lines.
I guess there's a lot of weird little jokes in this, but like I think they were going over my head. They're very of the era, and there was like there are some jokes in this that I was like, that's a good setup, payoff gag. I like when he's like, okay, yeah, when he's trying to get through like the digital code on the door. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, I'll try that. And then he just like kicks the door open. And he's like, that worked. Which is like, it sounds like he's describing something extremely complex to reset the locking mechanism or something, which is probably what he was actually doing. And then Robert Redford just went cowboy mode and decided to John Wayne the door open.
I like that they did an old school, who's on first style joke when he had the earbud in and he was saying what they were telling him to say. And first it's the context of the way he's saying it. They say it wrong to him, so he almost says it wrong. But then at the end, Whistler goes, and give me head or whatever, and he goes, and give me head.
Help.
Help.
Yeah. Give him help whenever he needs it.
So, those
also, I really don't like that term, and like it seems to have been getting it. Yeah, I don't know why. I just think it's weird and gross, and I don't like it. I like blowjob.
I like suck job.
I like a sucky, if you know what I mean.
Motherfucker.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know. I just think it's a weird old man term that people, when you say that, people are like, ugh.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You
freak.
You fucking freak.
Pretty, like, hard or whatever. Like, stronger. It sounds stronger.
Freaks.
I don't know. What I'm saying is that I cannot explain why I don't like it. I just don't like when people say that. Even when I was like a younger person and people would say that, I was like, ugh.
I will say this.
Can you just call it oral sex like the rest of us?
Oh, that's even worse.
That's what it is.
So many syllables. There was an on-roll mention to movie title shout out at like an hour and 55 minutes. Or they had to sneak their way in or something like that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting them to ever say sneakers at any point in this movie, but I also don't think it should be called Sneakers. I think, like I said before, it's too cutesy sounding. Like it sounds like it should be a cartoon heist movie.
And that brings us to today's segment. What would you call it? Let's start with you, Steve. What would you call this movie?
I don't know.
You're on the spot. Jason, you got some in the barrel?
Heisters.
Nope. Heisters. The gay team.
The the gay team. Something that has to do with like the MacGuffin, make it sound a little bit more powerful.
The black box.
But then it gives away the second half of the movie because the first bit of the movie is about them literally being like heists.
Trying to get the black box.
Even like breakers would be better, or like I don't know, just like sneaker. What I'm saying is sneakers is too cutesy sounding to me. It's like calling it like bubble gum or something. It's like the equivalent.
The bubble gum gang.
Yeah, we're the bubble gum gang, and we're here to rob your bank. I feel like.
Why do you think he didn't ask any questions when the suits first showed up? It's like, we know who you are. We're the NSA. And he just believed them.
I don't even think they flashed badges
even
at
Sidney
him.
Poitier gave him shit for that later, though.
I do have a theory about that. I think it's that he wanted his name to be cleared so badly that he would pretty much just believe anybody at that point. And why would anybody lie? And it wasn't until they sort of started to like pull the string and unravel what was happening that he felt dumb about it.
But you'd think that he would have some sort of
right
protocol in place, given what his job is, that they would do background checks on people that were trying to come give him a job, right? And
they do a background check on these two guys, and then they're like, "Oh, credits."
Yeah. But I mean, if the guy is such a genius, which he is clearly supposed to be, it could have been a thing where, like,
is he though? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think he actually is. It was his friend that was doing all the hacking.
His friend is the one that hired him. That's what I'm saying. Is that
But I thought his friend was the one doing all the
Ben
hacking.
Kingsley's character was
Cosmo,
the hack.
Cosmo.
Yeah, he's the hacker genius, man.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
I know, and he's the one that hired those NSA agents, the fake NSA agents, to
Oh,
hire him.
okay. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that he could have had something in place to, if they did do a background check, to be all fake stuff or like things that would be, like, prepared for him to do that. But they didn't even do this, which it just makes Robert Redford's character seem like a dummy. Like, which I guess maybe he's supposed to be. He is the guy who always wants to get the girl or whatever at the end.
That's what I'm saying. He's like kind of like, that's kind of your assumption, right? But then all of these little seeds that we're talking about are indicators that he's not actually that type of character. Even when they first break in and he hops over the counter, he doesn't do it all cool. He falls. Like a loser.
Face, yeah.
If you want to get a little bit more meta about it, though, like, this movie is really very much a product of the era and has that, like, that ex machina, like, things just kind of fall into place when they need to element. That's just a product of that era when people didn't think too hard about their movies.
They do stuff, and there just seems like a lot of missed opportunities in this movie in terms of storytelling for me. And, like, I did like, because for me, visually, it made me click right away, like, oh, his friend's alive with the magic trick, right? Like, his friend does the coin to make him go get the pizza or whatever at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And then he says, pepperoni shaken, not stirred. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Is that a joke?
That one I did catch, and I went, what?
That's because they like James Bond.
Yeah, but
that's such a weird thing to say. I feel like from now on, anytime we order a pizza with each other, we have to say that. Let's get pepperoni shaken, not stirred.
No, I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to say it to people that haven't seen this movie, so they think that I'm fucking crazy.
Let's make merch, T-shirts that say pizza shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, pepperoni pizza shaken.
And then it'll be an open pizza box, and the pizza will just be completely fucked up, like somebody shook a pizza up.
I've seen that before.
I mean, that's what it looks like in your mouth and in your stomach. Like, it's going to be all
like
messed around.
Yeah.
I wrote that moment off as the 60s, you know, they're smoking a lot of pot.
Anyway, like,
you know.
Okay. It was a dumb, bad joke that didn't land for any of us. I'm glad we can agree there. But what I mean to say is that they did the magic trick. It would have been nice to me if, like, he had the pepperoni pizza there as well, and he opened the pepperoni pizza and he said, like, I never did get that pizza or something. You know, like, it seems like an opportunity that they don't use. And I don't know. There's just one small example of a whole bunch of those that happen in this movie where they set something up in a way that you could do it narratively, and it would add more dimensions to the character and make them more interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like a super smart thing to do to have the pizza there. It just is like, just having that would add a little bit more dimension to that character, who now just seems to be like a robot man who lives in an office full of shark tanks or whatever. Like, I did like the fact that, you know, he did say the James Bond line, and then he made his office look like a James Bond villain office. He's like, I'm just gonna be a James Bond villain now.
Did you notice that college-aged, what was his name, Klaus, I think?
What?
Cosmo?
Is his name Cosmo? I could have sworn he called him Klaus at one point.
No, his name's Cosmo, or that's Cosmo? At least his nickname.
Yeah, right. Anyway, that the guy who played him, Joe Meyer, is that character actor who's in literally still working to this day, and I just pulled him up here. He's been in 8,000 things. He's been in literally. Is
that an exaggeration?
Yeah, of course it is.
But you have it right there.
It says 14. That can't be right.
14,000?
No, 14 movies. Never mind.
14,000 movies.
No, considering Sam Jackson has been in like 700 movies, 14,000 is crazy. I thought this dude was in so many things.
Maybe he's just in lots of stuff that you've seen.
Could be. Could be.
It's like
Or
that Smirnoff phenomenon.
He's a different person completely than who
Oh,
I'm thinking.
Smirnoff. Speaking of product placement, I know we bring this up a lot, and I'm often a defender of product placement, but I do have to say that when product placement is obtrusive or awkward or very, very off-putting, that's when I have a problem with it. And the way when they're going through the garbage, and like the garbage is all very neatly folded and clean and everything, and then she picks up the toothpaste and she says, "The way that he rolled up this crest." Like, she calls it Crest, and I'm like, who the fuck calls toothpaste Crest? That was like, I was like, that's a little bit. Like, how did she even know it was Crest? It was all rolled up. She should have said toothpaste.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's when I have an issue with it. But like, if they're just drinking a Coca-Cola on screen, it doesn't bother me because I'm like, hey, people drink Coca-Cola every single day in real life. But if someone was to take a drink of a Coca-Cola and say, "Man, this Coca-Cola is delicious," then I would be like, oh god. So yeah, the Crest line, no good. Didn't like it.
No good.
What about the anal joke?
It's like one of my 8 notes that I wrote.
What about the
says
anal line?
Crest? What?
What about the anal line?
What about the anal line?
Oh, wait, I think you took that the wrong way, Kaylin, because I took it like that, and then their look wasn't because he said anal. Their look was because they knew exactly who to ask, and it was Liz.
Yeah. Did you mean to say that they all have had sex with her and they did it in her butt?
No.
Is that what you thought it meant?
I think Kaylin may, because this happened to me at first too, because this movie lands jokes improperly so much that they've said, we need somebody who's cunning and sneaky and blah 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 and anal, and they all make a face, but the face doesn't mean that the face isn't them reacting to the fact he said anal. Because
she's anal retentive.
Super anal retentive.
Yeah.
But
she's the one that noticed that, like, how anal is, because she probably does the same stuff, right?
But what I'm saying, what Kaylin picked up on there, is that they tell these jokes in this movie that make you question your own sanity so frequently that, after the head joke earlier,
I mean, like when they say pizza shaken not stirred,
I had to for a second go, was that an anal joke?
Okay. Well, see, this shows the difference between me and you two, because I at no point thought that it was an anal joke.
I figured it out seconds later. Okay.
You're still an anal freak in my book.
Shout out to Lee Garlington, Dr. Alina Reiskov in this, she's actually from 10 Million Things. And also the guy who plays the guy that Liz has to go deal with. You may remember him from a little movie called Groundhog Day, where he plays the guy that
plays the devil.
Is that a fan theory?
Yeah, there was a new theory that came out recently that I kind of liked, that I thought was interesting, and he's the guy that kind of gives away that he's in a loop originally, like right away. That's when he first starts to realize that he's living the day again, is because Ned, I think his name is, shows
Ned
up.
Comes up to him and says the same thing, and he's like, we did this yesterday. And he's like, what are you talking about?
But then they go through the loops over and over again, and Ned is like often seen multiple times throughout, and sometimes he has these like weird sinister looks, and like he's obviously very, very annoying. And one of the last things that happens in the movie is that, because he's an insurance salesman, right? He's like, he signed the paperwork today, and he bought the most life insurance that anyone's ever bought in their entire lives. And so people think that like he was trying to get him to like sell his soul to the devil to get out of the loop for like,
babe, wake up! The new Groundhog Day theory just dropped.
Yeah,
that's a shirt.
Yeah. And it's just a picture of Ned's face with the little devil horns on it.
Yeah,
he was a pretty big dirtbag in this movie, though. From like, what was the first one? Do you want breakfast? Should I call you or nudge you?
Yeah, he's just, and I really like that Liz gives up the whole plan by being like, it's crazy the people you meet on computers these days, and Cosmo's like, there's no way you could ever meet a woman like you on a computer.
They wouldn't match them together like that. Yeah.
So I thought that was one of those moments where I was like, this is the most fucking 80s moment.
Hey, listen, it's difficult to date in your 40s, I assume.
especially when you're creepy and someone asks to use the phone and you're like, yeah, in the bedroom. Like, what's this guy gonna do? Like, lock her in? Like, I was getting weird, creepy vibes from him.
But like moments before that, or while she's on the phone in the bedroom, it's like he's got.
I don't know if he was that creepy,
dog.
to be honest.
He wasn't. I think he was just like didn't know how to talk to women. So his big line,
just awkward, yeah.
His
and
big
passionate
line
about stuff.
was like, "You want to get breakfast?" She's like, "Sure." Check, please.
And also, he would help her after pounding the breasts.
That's true, but that's for us. That was a moment like anal. That's for the
breasts.
Audience.
That was for us.
How will you help me pound the breasts?
Yeah.
I couldn't stop coming, personally.
Hey, do you guys have St. Louis? Sorry, sidebar. Apparently, all you can eat wings. I'm going as soon as possible.
Do you have one there? Sorry, Steve. It's mid. St. Louis wings is mid. What you want?
Yeah, but all you can eat.
Did you say it is mid or are mid? Would you say is or are?
St. Louis wings, the restaurant, is mid.
Okay.
Sorry, St. Louis wings. We're not going to get that.
They're our sponsor this week.
Fuck. I want Wing Street.
But so the basically this movie is first half is the Cosmo hires Marty unknowingly that it's him to steal a box, and then it's like a code breaker. So then the second half is him trying to get it back from Cosmo, his old friend. And we get Steve. I think you mentioned earlier. His crew is made up of unlawful people, to say the least, ex-cons of some sort or something. And we get a nice little introduction to them at the beginning when the guys in the suits come in to hire them or force hire them for a job or whatever because they know his secret.
That's part of it too. They're very convincing, in my opinion.
Yeah, they had the credentials to have him not be suspicious, but like I said before,
don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
They should be suspicious in their line of work. Anybody giving them any job should be suspicious. Sure. I would be anyway, but I guess I'm just a normally paranoid person as I am. So
if I was doing a heist and there were this many fucking gingers in the movie in the existence, if I had to see Donald Logue and Timothy Busfield and Lee Garlington,
Robert
Redhair, I would know the jig is up. Okay,
like something's wrong here.
There's too many gingers.
There are. I didn't even really put that together. There's a lot of redheaded people in this movie.
Maybe is the director like a redhead and was like, we gotta hire all the redheads.
He's like a mega ginger, like white, like
translucent
white skin. Yeah, with freckles, and curly red hair.
It's like, I want to tell this story is a story that needs to be told, and if everybody's not a ginger in the movie,
like, all right, that take was good, but could you guys not talk so loud into the microphones?
I fell on my keys. That's what that jingling was.
My sciatica's acting up again.
Actually, Liz,
I gotta switch seats.
Liz was also kind of a redhead. She had kind of a red tinge to her hair, even though it's probably out of a box. And I mean box as in hair dye, not her vagina, Kaylin.
Yeah, that one took me a
second. I saw the way you looked at Sidney Poitier there, Kaylin.
He's got a good line where it's like when Marty's like, oh, these guys figured out who I am, now they're hiring me to do this job or whatever. And like, it was like, well, the Whistler's like, I don't give a fuck about you, I just want the money. Carl's down, like, automatic. Mother's hesitant. And then Don's like, oh, geez, well, I got to join, otherwise you guys will be, was it chalk outlines? You guys be chalk outlines without me.
Do you know what's funny?
Is that Sidney Poitier that said that?
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that chalk outline thing? I don't think they have ever done that in real life. Like, I don't think that's ever been a thing. I think that's always been from the movies.
No, it is a real thing. But they only do that when people are still alive.
Oh. Would you care to elaborate? Because
they have to remove the person from the crime scene in order to give them medical attention. So they need to know exactly how the body was lying at the crime scene. So they'll do an outline.
It becomes a trope just because a crime scene, the way a crime scene looks, becomes a trope. That's interesting.
Yeah, of course. I don't know why I know that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why I know that like, because it's an old film noir thing. That's where it kind of comes from originally.
Yeah, but that the reason that they would trace you on the ground is like because you need to be removed, so they need to know how you were lying, where your body was, because they can't study the crime scene.
You mean
if you're fucking?
It's always like this.
Yeah. Exactly. It always
For our
looks
audio
like you.
listeners, I have one arm up and one arm down.
That's how I sleep every night too. I sleep like a chalk outline.
Our audio listeners and
you don't have a body pillow to hold on to?
I actually have been considering getting one because I do find I sleep more comfortably when I have a pillow like between my legs.
I personally vouch for it. I got 2.
Oh yeah,
got a threesome going on.
Does it have paprika on it or something?
If you mean green paprika, then yes, sir.
Oh my god.
No spoilers. I'm really excited to watch that Nightmare Base. I heard the parade theme. I don't know if that means anything to you. That song fucking rules.
Yeah. How are you guys at cryptography or whatever? Cryptography, or what is the thing called?
What?
Encrypting thing.
So out of the 3 of us, I'm the tech support person, and a lot of the
out of the 3 of us, I'm probably the best at puzzles.
Well, yeah, you're probably the best at puzzles.
Okay, how did he figure out that? That's a question. So there's some sort of C-Tech astronomy or something like that.
I was just going to say, though, just before we move on, I was just going to say a lot of this stuff went over my head because the technology is so archaic.
Like outdated now, yeah.
Old? Yeah. But, like, so how did they come... What made them think of those words that they were thinking about at the Scrabble game, like Monterey Square or Monterey Coast or something like that?
Because they knew what letters they needed. They were doing anagrams.
Yeah,
basically.
the set tech, whatever, and then he was like, "Wait a second, I'm good at this." Actually, he did kind of a superpower for rearranging the anagrams fast.
Yeah, they got a surprisingly good amount of stuff out of that without having to like write it down and just using the bricks. Personally, I would have removed all the other tiles.
Yes, that was making me crazy. That was making me crazy.
Make me go nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun scene to visually have something, and it was kind of kooky and fun when they were making up weird stuff that didn't make sense.
That's right. At any point, did you guys start to feel suspicious of Don Crease's character?
Not really. I'm not sure if it was meant to have you feel that anything like suspicious about him, but I felt like the 2 of them had sort of this like closeness that you can only get through actors. It can be missed on like the written page, or if 2 less professional or less, good actors sometimes aren't able to show that on-screen chemistry between 2 people. But I think they did a pretty good job, the 2. Because Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier are both amazing actors, and they were able to make me believe that they had sort of a long-standing friendship, and it would have been very shocking to me if either of them betrayed the other.
That is one thing I was waiting for somebody to be a mole or something, but I couldn't really see who it would be because, like,
the one that would have broken my heart would have been Whistler because he was the coolest.
What?
Imagine he like pulled a gun out and then was like, "I'm not blind."
I think for me it would have been Mother because Dan Aykroyd was the biggest name who did the least in the movie. He was just the phone guy. He was the one that was technically the one hacking everything because during that era you literally had to like fuck around with the phone lines to do that stuff. And I just wanted to bring up I thought they did a much better job at contextualizing what a hack would look like versus last week where it was just like a fucking screensaver. And I get we talked through it. I'm fine with the way that hackers did it last week. I'm fine with that now. I get it. But I really liked how they showed it in this where
tonally the movies are completely different.
That's
right?
true.
Like
this feels more like an Ocean's 11 kind of a thing.
Yeah, and Hackers was more like a fucking MTV music video kind of shit, like
it feels like
where everybody's dressed like they're from the future but they're in the past.
Well, it feels like Hackers feels like you're watching a movie about the past that becomes a dystopian cyberpunk future, where this feels pretty grounded in our time because everything they clearly had somebody in this movie to like check.
Well, aesthetically, one is trying to appeal to a completely different group of people, right? Like Hackers is very much for teenagers of the 90s, whereas this is for dads of the 90s.
This is for a 45-year-old man to like sit and
a guy
fall
who
asleep
reads
on
like Tom Clancy novels or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah, this is for the Hunt for Red October crowd.
Yeah.
Long dialogue, politically charged, fucking really, really long-winded. Did I say that already?
I mean, it's a fair description. The movie is a little bit long-winded at times, and there are even like moments that were exciting for me while I was watching it were also still kind of boring. Where I was like, "Oh, this is intriguing," and I would find myself being like, "Okay, okay," and then I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know. Can you move on? Something blow up, please."
I'm wondering if
Can someone get electrocuted?
did The Simpsons reference this movie? Because this seems like the kind of thing The Simpsons would reference, and also some of the things in it felt like they were referenced in The Simpsons, especially the gag where he knocks him out with the thing, and then right before he's going to get knocked out again, he's like, "Not the head!" Boom!
Yeah,
That felt like that episode.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm a pretty good I'm a pretty good Simpsons aficionado, and there's nothing in this movie that has iconography enough that The Simpsons could really reference, I think. But the Buddy Wallace or whatever, the guy who keeps knocking him out, there is a gag in the NASA episode of The Simpsons, right, I think, where Homer keeps getting knocked out by that guy with the blackjack. Yeah, and then the one guy's like, "Where'd you get that thing anyway?" He's like, "We sent away for it." He mailed away for it. It's like, you didn't need to knock them out; they were willing to come with us.
There's a trope in this movie. I'm wondering if it had been done before. Actually, the thing of when you're in a trunk and you have to determine where you were based on the sounds. Now, was that
try that?
Was that a trope that had been in movies prior to this? Because I've definitely seen it after this and in TV and stuff.
I know I've seen it and stuff after this as well. I cannot think of an example before this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't been done before.
I'm fascinated with what this movie did, because it seems like it just took a bunch of ideas that weren't really cool enough to become like part of the zeitgeist or part of like film culture enough to really have that long lasting. So I honestly feel like this movie came out, people went to see it, they were like, that was fine, and then forgot about it.
But movies like this are sort of a dime a dozen at that period as well, where everybody, like Tom Clancy movies were being made like crazy, and people loved political thrillers. People were getting more into the technology and like the fear of the internet and the computers and what it can represent in terms of like crime. So they were being made a lot, but not to this degree or to have this caliber of cast in it. So again, it's surprising that I'd never heard of this movie before, because you would think that a movie with this stacked of a cast would be, like Ben Kingsley, I think, won his Oscar shortly before or after this. I can't remember.
Ghostbusters 2 came out 2 years before this,
Okay, yeah. I hate to break it to you, Jason, but Ghostbusters 2 was not like a global phenomenon.
2 is a global phenomenon. Okay, what movie was Dan Aykroyd was in, like East of Eden, maybe? Was that a thing he was in? What was Dan Aykroyd in around this time? He was
East of Eden.
I don't know, but I think he was doing quite a bit.
Yes.
I just mean to say that like there are prestige movies and then there are movies. Like Ghostbusters 2 is a movie, it's not a prestige movie, right? But like Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, even River Phoenix, all of these people have been in and have been in since and before, like very, very sort of Oscar-friendly movies that, are given accolades and stuff. Whereas, Ghostbusters 2, I don't think was nominated for Best Score by Ray Parker Jr.
Ray Parker Jr. Do you want to hear something fucked? He was, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. He was in Coneheads a year later.
Oh, a year later, okay.
Yeah, so that he did this and then Coneheads.
But like Robert Redford is like a cinema man. Like he is one of the kings of cinema in Hollywood. Like I think it's the Sundance film festival he created that. Like it's one of those sort of like he's like a king, man. He's a king of Hollywood.
He was okay. Here he's coming. So Dan Aykroyd is coming off My Girl, and his next movie after this, and he's coming off of This Is My Life, which I've never heard of. But the next movie he's in is Chaplin, and then a TV movie called CCPD, and then Coneheads, and then My Girl 2. So like and this is all within 3 years. So he was in fucking.
Well, Dan Aykroyd also is he takes more of a producer role in a lot of stuff, and aside from that, it's a lot of cameo work or small roles. He's never really heading up a movie, which is it's unfortunately the truth is that like
Bruce
he's kind of a frumpy.
2000.
He's like a frumpy blue collar man, like he's not a leading man kind of thing. But he always does. He does the work. He's like a Sam Jackson. When he shows up, he does a professional job, and then he takes his paycheck and goes home. And, sometimes it rules, and sometimes you're like, Sam Jackson killed it in that part in The Kingsman. Remember he plays the bad guy with the lisp.
There's a moment like that in this movie where a friend of the show, Darth Vader, shows up. James Earl Jones shows up at the very, very end of this movie.
Yeah, that's like Dan Aykroyd in The Temple of Doom.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. I'm looking at Sidney Poitier's sort of resume here, and he had kind of wrapped things up by this point.
Yeah, I think he was more or less retired at this point.
Yeah, he was doing a few movies, but it's not like in the 60s and 70s where he was in 3 movies a year.
Well, yeah, but he was also doing stuff for cinema that nobody else has really even come close to doing since, in terms of like forging a path for like people of color in Hollywood, and like having the movies be about them and not just have them in them.
I had an epiphany moment where I realized that like Sidney Poitier's sort of style of acting is similar to Denzel Washington's style of acting in that same lineage of people, actors of color being able to like, they're not in roles where they're black. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're just characters in the movie who
exactly.
happen to be of a different race other than the most predominant one of all of Hollywood since the beginning of its inception, which is white people.
Did I send you that TikTok about the reverse blaxploitation movie from the 70s where the guy gets turned, he's a white guy that gets turned, or he's a black guy that gets turned white, but it got taken over by like a super black director who didn't want like white actors being like the focus. He wanted it to be this story about being marginalized instead of it being like a wacky comedy about a guy getting turned into a different race, like that fucking bullshit from the 80s. That other movie where white guy, Soul Man, he puts on blackface to go to a black college, and it's just the most offensive nonsense from the 80s ever. Well, this is the opposite of that, where it's more of a serious movie.
So it's an actual commentary and not necessarily like a satire. Yeah.
What kind of sneakers are you guys wearing right now?
Barefoot.
Well, I am wearing no shoes.
Okay.
Do you wear sneakers in your house like a psycho, or are you just trying to get us back on track?
He's a sneako. Yeah, he's sneaking that sneaker back in. Well, we're talking about Sidney Poitier, which is a very important part of this movie, so I think it's worth the discussion.
He's another person I've never really seen. I've never really seen him do his thing.
I've seen
his
a
acting
bunch
is
of
effortless. That's what I kind of.
And he's also got a lot of gravitas and presence. His voice is penetrating, when he speaks. But yeah, I don't know if you've never seen Look Who's Coming to Dinner. It's probably one of the best movies ever made, and it's still
starring Ashton Kutcher and Bernie Mac.
It's a different one, but it's one of those movies that I watched it again fairly recently. I think like during the pandemic or like the tail end of the pandemic, we watched it, and it's unfortunate how it's still relevant, how relevant it is even to this day, and it made me very I was like, God damn, man. I think I cried at the end, and I was with like Ryan and Brian. I was like, don't look at me, I'm crying. This movie's so sad. It's making my heart hurt.
What year is that from?
What?
The original Look Who's Talking.
I think it's like it's not Sidney Poitier and Look Who's Talking too.
He plays all the babies.
He does all the babies, and he's like, Mommy, I need some milk. Mommy, I'm thirsty. And milk comes from breasts. No, it's either the late 60s or early 70s, I think.
You know how there's like those conspiracy theorists about how they planted like
19
warnings.
Oh, guess who's coming to dinner? Sorry,
Sorry,
go.
not look who's coming to dinner. Guess who's coming to dinner. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Kaylin.
All good. Is Dave coming to dinner?
No, it's Sidney Poitier's coming to dinner. It's a woman brings her new boy or her significant other home to dinner, and
Is
to
his
her
name
like
Dave?
her affluent family. I don't know if you're making a joke that I don't understand, Kaylin, but if you are, I don't understand it. Sorry. We can move on if that's what you're trying to get me to do. I don't understand what's happening. Please explain.
I just remember
or
the
move
trailer for the remake in the 2000s, and the guy in the fucking trailer is like, "Guess who's coming to dinner?" Like the Rob Schneider.
It's
Rob
Ashton
Schneider is
Kutcher.
gonna be a 24-carat comedy.
on. I'm not sure if Sidney Poitier was still alive. Is he still alive?
I don't think.
I don't think so. Yeah, he died in 2022 recently.
Oh, yeah,
my
I remember
God.
that. I think I watched the Oscars that had his moment.
Yeah.
Kaylin.
So he would have been alive for that horrible remake that
Oh yeah.
took a real wrong page out of the book of when the original.
Even
came
though
out and what it
he
was
lived to probably be in his 80s, that movie took 10 years off his life.
Yeah, he's like, I was gonna be 105, but I'm calling it quits right now.
Sorry, Kaylin. Get us back on track here, buddy.
You know how there's conspiracy theorists, how like they plant warnings of 9/11 in movies.
Yeah.
So when they realize what the box does, one of the things they say is crash the passenger jet. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, Whistler keeps making these bad jokes where he's like, anybody want to like shut down the Federal Reserve? Anybody want to blah blah blah? Anybody want to blah, blah, blah? Anybody want to crash a couple of passenger airliners?
Yeah.
That thing reminded me of the two MacGuffins, the two main MacGuffins from the Fast franchise. And one of them is the thing that shows you where everybody is, and the other one is like one that can control fucking everything. They're very broad.
You can unlock every car.
No, I don't. Is it that? It's not that. I just watched Fast 10. It's not.
I don't know.
It's
Who knows?
they're two weapons that can just do everything.
Remember when those movies were just about racing your cars?
Hey, there's a great car race that goes off the rails in Fast 10.
They should just already do it and just cross it over with Transformers already. Like, what the fuck are they waiting for?
Yeah, that would be a good crossover.
Jason, you were saying something earlier at the top of the episode that there was a few things, had they changed, it would make this an awesome movie. Could you share with us what those few things are?
Well, I was
Excuse
going
me.
to kind of go into it in my what went well even better, but
Oh, okay, don't do it yet then. Fair enough.
it just sort of, I will say that and I did kind of cover it, but it's like, stop talking so much, everybody. And I know I could go on and on about how movies need to be shorter, but I have come around on it. There's the 90-minute movie, which is sort of like a fast feature. They're usually made for cheap. They're usually a vehicle. Then there's movies that are 2 hours or like 100 minutes, and those are like movies, right? We're gonna put this movie. It's a feature length feature. We're gonna put it in theaters. We're gonna see how it does. And then there's epics. You know, there's the fucking 2.5 hour, 3 hours, and nowadays those are usually the superhero movies or the fucking jerk off fast movies or the big dumb action jerk off dumb jerk offs.
Did you know that Sidney Poitier named his daughter Sidney Poitier?
That's
What?
That's perfect. That's perfect. Like, I fully expect this new Transformers movie to be fucking 2 hours and 49 minutes and a fucking post credits. You know what I mean? Like, so I
want
to watch it.
I
That's
get
all I-
why movies are the lengths they are through doing the show and through just being more aware of film. What I will say for this movie is, god damn it, like, it was the 90s now. Make things snappier. Just make things a little bit easier to consume.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And
I don't know though.
Why?
I don't think that dictates the quality of a film at all. like if you look at something like There Will Be Blood, it's 3 hours long and it's all long, drawn out conversation.
That's
it's
true.
one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
But it's captivating too, right? Like it's well.
That's
written.
the problem, is that there's not a lot of captivation. There are moments in this movie that are captivating, but they lose your attention very quickly because what they're talking about is not directly relating to the plot anymore. It's more about these characters and how they no longer relate to each other, but not in a dramatic or interesting way. Like even when Ben Kingsley takes Robert Redford into that room, which I assume is meant to like block recording of them or something, but like
the futuristic room and the futuristic Nakatano building,
like a safe room or something where they could go in there and talk without being heard or whatever, like in 2001 or Space Odyssey when they go to hide from Hal or whatever. But it wasn't interesting, and they didn't really explain it enough to me for me to understand the significance of that, other than it being visually interesting to a degree. But it wasn't even really that interesting. It was like they're in a big tube with a bunch of glowing red computers, and I had already lost interest in that conversation. I lost interest in that conversation because at first, I'm a little bit like, oh, I'm taken aback, like, oh, he's alive, okay.
And I'm a little bit rock and roll. Yeah. Sorry.
And I didn't really like absorb the first sort of bits of their conversation because I was like, okay, so this makes sense. Because like Jason, like you had said, I thought maybe, or I can't remember if it was you, Kalen. One of you had said like would it have been more interesting if we thought a heel turn was going to happen with one of the other characters? But as soon as you reveal that Ben Kingsley's alive, if there was a heel turn, it would have detracted from the revelation that he's alive and that he's the villain now, because that then would have just made you feel like, well, now I don't trust anyone anymore. They'd already spent so much time getting you to like everybody. I think if they were going to do a heel turn, it would have had to have been either Sidney Poitier or River Phoenix, right? Like it would have had to have been either of those two, I think.
He wasn't a bumbling fool after all.
I think Sidney Poitier would have made the most sense, and because he was their friendship was sort
ex-CIA.
And he's ex-CIA.
Yeah, he's the smartest, yeah.
And then I think that River Phoenix would have been fine, but would have made the least sense because he had like Kaylin, you said, he had so little to do in this movie. He just sort of was the bumbling, like almost comic relief. But then where the comic relief is kind of split between Mother, Whistler, and River Phoenix's characters.
That's the other thing, though, is that it's almost like spread amongst everybody. Like everybody's kind of funny, but no one's funny. Like no one's really funny.
Is this like I want to see a trailer for this because like I want to know how this was marketed.
No, the trailer. I watched the trailer and it's like.
Do they pitch it as a comedy?
No, it's like
okay.
Guns like every 5 seconds.
That's something I wanted to talk about. That makes this definitely not a hard comedy, even though they act like it is a comedy sometimes. The score for this movie ranges between playful and fluty and like fun to like when it gets going, it's like dun 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 dun, and that confused me. I hated the score.
Like the chirpy score kind of reminded me of the music from like Hook or something, like when he's like at his business office or whatever. like that kind of music mixed with like sexy saxophone, which is like, why is there so much sax in this goddamn movie? And then like the tech music.
Yeah, it goes into like Tom Clancy style music.
There's like a moment where it's just pure piano. And there's like a little bit of orchestral stuff in the background, but it's just piano, and the piano is going insane. Like I would have loved to have seen the person composing the music on the piano, like going nuts, like their hair going everywhere, like some evil Beethoven. But yeah, I would say the music was kind of not memorable, and like I am a fan of scores for film, and this is not one that I would use in my D&D campaign.
No, and I did have a moment where I was really getting annoyed with how playful the score was, no matter what. But I did really appreciate that, like when it came to business time, the music did go into that, because I was waiting for the movie to go into business time, and the music not really reflecting what was going on, and that's why I was wondering if the trailer had a playful lean on it because of how funny some of the things are trying to be, and how
they advertise this movie as like a heist movie, basically.
Like a heist movie, yeah.
Because not like an Ocean's 11, like you won't satisfaction, baby. Like it's not like one of those. It's like a real in the
No,
year
this is-
1992.
This is a heist movie for nerds.
Doing a heist was really easy.
And it falls into the hacker. It does, I did get the, vibe, the sense of it. It felt like a hacker movie. But all the hacks they were doing were the most analog version of a hack, right down to the most analog version of a hack is literally doing a stakeout and using technology that doesn't exist, computer enhanced, to watch a guy type in his password from a building over, which I was going oh my god.
I feel the most analog
whatever.
hack
We hadn't yet reached the trope of that being a dumb thing yet.
True.
That has become more of a dumb thing every passing day. It's a dumber.
But it was
thing.
becoming a thing during this era, to the point that people weren't. They were just fine with it being in movies. It wasn't like in the late
I'm
90s.
still fine with it. There's a really good joke in that Steve Carell space show. I can't remember what the name of it is. Space Force, I think. And they have an image on screen, and Steve Carell's like, "Can you zoom in and enhance?" And they're like, "No, we can't do that." And he's like, "Well, is there any way to make the image more clear?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, we can do that." And he makes it so clear.
Because they used AI, probably.
Yeah.
How many mathematicians are getting it on in their office, do you think?
I thought you were going to say, does it take to screw in a light bulb for a second there?
One to find the sine, and one to find the cos, and one to
And
find
the other to be a
tan,
virgin forever.
and one to watch them and film them. Nope. Okay. What do you mean by that, Kaylin? I'm not sure I understand the reference.
Well, he bangs that lady.
Panic, the guy that created the box,
Donald Logue,
got it on. The person that they're spying on from the van that you guys were talking about.
Yeah. I don't remember Lee Gettysburg or whatever her fucking name is. I don't remember having such a beautiful rack.
Jeez.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
You don't remember from 1994's The Rack?
I don't remember Lee Garlington having such a great... Anyway. What is she from? Was she Grace Under Fire's
she
friend?
Was in she was in a lot of stuff in this time.
She's in
period.
230 movies, so she's putting up Sam Jackson
Nice.
numbers.
I'm trying to think. I know she was in a lot of horror movies in the 80s and 90s, but there is something that's sticking out in my brain that I cannot quite put my finger on, and I'm sifting through her IMDb right now to see if I can remember what it is.
I'm trying to think of...
I feel like I remember her with big hair being like, "What'll it be, darling?" or something.
I think that's Grace Under Fire, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that a show? Grace
Yeah,
Under
that
Fire?
was... what's her
Oh,
face?
she was it was like a sitcom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yes. Only 2 seasons, but it was in syndication all the way up until I was in university for sure.
But did you find Grace Under Fire?
Yeah, it is Grace Under Fire.
Yeah, okay. And I think that she was literally she worked in the diner and was like the wisecracking.
She was in Psycho 1 and 2.
Oh, like
probably
the
what I remember from the
OG
best.
Psycho movies?
Yeah, there's 3 of them, and Norman Bates, or
What?
not Norman Bates, but the guy who plays Norman Bates. What the fuck's his name?
Vince Vaughn.
No, Anthony Perkins.
She was in the... I watched Psycho. She must have been a fucking kid. She must have been like a teenager.
She wasn't in the first one. She was in the second and third one.
Okay.
So Psycho is kind of the original Lego sequel because they made Psycho 2 like 30 years after the first Psycho and got the same actor to come back, and then they made 2 more, and he's like completely reformed. He's been released, goes back to his home again. And then I think the plot of the second one is like
immediately and
no, it's like the
shower
plot of the
again.
second. No, the plot of the second one is like somebody's trying to convince him that he's gone insane again. So they're like pretending to be his mom, and he thinks he's seeing his mom, and like gets him to kill people. But really, it's like somebody doing it to him. They're kind of fun. They're kind of interesting. If you like the first Psycho, you'll probably not like those 2 as much, but you'll be like, this is kind of charming.
I go Psycho when the new joint hits. Got to get jiggy with it. That's it.
Do you go Psycho when there's Canadian content referenced in your entertainment?
I go Psycho to stay away from CanCon for the most part because it's usually bad.
I got a new segment.
Ooh.
Canadian content shout out in movies.
Okay.
Hit us with it.
Janek's made-up wife ran off to Montreal, Canada.
Oh yeah,
and Marty also escaped to Canada.
a lot of people up
you
in
know,
Canada.
That's like, because the thing is like, if you say that someone escaped to Canada in movies of this era, in your mind, or not our mind, but in the mind of the public at this time, that just means they've escaped to another civilized world. But if you say they escaped to Mexico, everyone's like, well, now they're like living
For cowboys.
on like a cocaine farm or some shit.
But do movies have the same thing as like radio stations where you have to have Canadian content? Like
In
you have
the
to have
States, I don't think so. I don't think they have any laws like that because everything
No, I
is
honestly
just
think
American.
it's for the thing that
on
I just
TV.
said, racism, basically.
Yeah, xenophobia.
Every time?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it's like
fine.
people have like misconceptions about countries everywhere, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
and it's horrible, but it's also, I think, a reality when it comes down into the writer's room. They're like, no, we can't say that they went to Mexico.
I'll tell you, without giving too much information away, I have encountered a lot of Americans recently, and they still have a lot of weird misconceptions about Canada, even though where I live juts so far down into the States that it's undeniable that it would be the same climate. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, my partner lives in Minnesota right now, and like it's colder there than it is here the majority of the year. they're significantly further north than we are.
They talk more like Canadians in Minnesota than we do in Canada. Yeah.
I've talked to Danny's mom on the phone before, and it's like I'm talking to a cartoon character from Canada. Like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Oh, how's it going, eh?
Yeah.
My dad has a friend at his at his summer camp place that he has like a trailer. I don't want to call it a trailer park. It's not. Anyway, it's more like a summer camp, like where you go to camp kind of a place. And she's from Minnesota, and she definitely talks like she's from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I make fun of her like subtly, but she's a Trumper, so like she's an idiot. So I can fucking throw these things under the radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I make fun of you guys' accents all the time, so.
Everybody makes fun of the fact that we say car.
I gotta park my car in the car park. But yeah, Danny sometimes will say like ghost. We'll be like ghost. There's a spooky ghost in there.
Did you guys notice Whistler spill his drink in his lap?
He also almost spilled all of his food in his lap. Like he played being blind very well, and I think we're gonna get to the point where more blind actors will actually be playing blind people. But this is one of those
movies like 40 years ago. And it's not
I also
really
don't know
happening.
how interested blind people are in acting a lot of the time because they're never gonna fucking see it.
It's always the
Why would
it's always the deafs that want to be in movies that say I can do it.
Because to them it's a
Magdalene.
purely visual medium. It's probably the most
True.
beautiful shit they've ever seen. And you can visually make deaf stuff more interesting and less comical, right? Like, it's easy to go for the gags, and they do go for a few gags in this movie. Like at the end when he walks up to Darth Vader and is like, I want peace on earth and goodwill towards men, but he's like talking to nobody, and then he has to like reconfigure himself. But
So
he does. What I mean to say is his convincingness is like his ability to look at stuff without making it look like he's looking at anything in a sighted world way. Like he's doing like the eye movements and stuff, and he's kind of got that sort of like relaxed eyelid thing going on.
But without it being offensive.
Convincing. No, it didn't seem offensive to me, but I don't know if it's offensive. Like that's the other thing, right? It's like
How would you know?
How would you know that?
Charlie Cox, I think, does it really well too for Daredevil. I think his blind guy portrayal is like to the point, and
Sometimes I feel like he's maybe doing a little bit too much because he's like goes cross-eyed at points.
But here's the
like,
thing about Charlie Cox that I want to. I don't know if this is just me, but he kind of just looks like that. Like when I see him,
he just looks like he might be blind for
when
real.
I see him in the world, I'm like, oh, he just his face just kind of looks like he's doing.
Well, like
blind
when
guy.
I think about it, I think like if I was to try and unfocus my eyes to like make it so that I don't actually see anything, like my eyes do start to go crossed a little bit, like, and it is glazed over. It's like when you look at somebody who's really, really drunk and like they're looking through you, they're not looking at you.
I call it ogre eyes.
Ogre eyes.
Ogre-eyed thousand.
That guy's got a case of the ogre eyes. Don't let him in the bar.
Yeah,
Cut him off.
Are you guys ever worried about catching cooties from rat semen?
No. Are you?
I mean, yeah. If I'm
That was one of the anagrams, right? Cooties from rats on the Scrabble board. Yeah. No, but I am worried about catching rabies or the plague or a number of other diseases that they could potentially pass on to human beings.
That's true.
Well, apparently only warm-blooded creatures can give you rabies or something like that.
That was a good joke, which I appreciated that joke. That was good.
I wanted to. My favorite payoff of this movie was when they're going around, like, what are we going to do with all the money we're going to make early in the movie?
See, this is why I thought that maybe for River Phoenix would be a good heel turn as well, because he never want for anything, and it would have been like it could have been a thing where he like plays all his cards so close to the chest that he doesn't ever reveal anything about himself. They think
he wants a date. What are you talking about?
But the movie's
that's
not
such
that
a
smart.
silly.
That's
I know, but that's what I mean to say is like if all he wants is a date when he's going to get a slice of like a crazy check, it makes him seem more simple than he is, right?
And they do
but
say
maybe.
I'm just gonna say they do a thing where it's like.
Listen, I'm saying you're right, Kalen, but at the end of the day, he is that simple. That's the problem. Is that he's a fucking dumbass. He's a hot dummy who doesn't even know which wire to cut.
They also do make a moment out of the fact that they're only getting 175,000 and it's split 7 ways or 6 ways.
Yeah,
or whatever.
like that's not very much.
But he even says they're all like, I want this and I want that, and he even says it's not that much money. And I think that the most reasonable is trip to Europe, and which is what Clutch wants, or Crinch or whatever his name is, Cindy Poitier,
Crease, yeah,
Crunch. And
Captain Crunch, that's what we call Sidney Poitier's character.
And River Phoenix's character just wants to go on a cool date, and he gets at the end he gets to go on a cool date with SMG girl, and I love that
the
moment.
Oozy Floozy is what I call her.
That's genius and brilliant, and I do like that moment because of the fact he's such a simpleton hot guy that he just sees hot girl with a gun, and they're a match made in heaven.
Yeah,
I ship them so hard.
Yeah, but I agree 100%. But all it really did for me was confirm that like he's an idiot. Like his best play when he walks into the toy factory or whatever is like, "Hey, can I use your John?" It's like, Jesus. He didn't have anything better other than, "Can I use the toilet, please?" What?
So that Marty, he does the distraction so that Marty can get in with the balloons and the cake box, with the briefcase and the cake box.
Yeah, and his play is like, listen, I've got these 4 cases of 36,000 bottles of
Drano.
Industrial Drano. Like, let me in.
I did like, so this is how I perceived one moment that I thought was kind of goofy, where Mother and what was River Phoenix's name? Just like Chad or Kid or Carl. They both dress the same, and there's a forced perspective thing where Carl's up in the rafters because he goes in to like be the cleaner, and he goes up into the rafters, and then one of the security guards is like, wait a second, that guy's supposed to be like doing the yard work or whatever. He goes and looks at it, and it's Mother dressed in the same costume just out in that backyard. I don't think that those guys look similar enough. So was that just a visual gag that was like kind of for us? And also, he was just far enough away for it to make sense. Was that meant to be kind of a fun joke?
You know what? Now that you say it, like I didn't think of it that way when I first watched it. I was like, oh, they were just doing the decoy thing. Like, but obviously they're not the same body.
They're comically different looking people. It's
possible
up
that
close.
they were supposed to just be on the same team. Like,
okay.
Person,
yeah. No, but he specifically was like, where did that guy go? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
There's a lot of things in this movie that, unfortunately, I think require a second viewing, but I'll never watch this movie again.
The thing that you keep saying is like, it needs to be more snappy. It's pretty fucking snappy to the point that it snaps so fast that I'm like, what?
I think snappy is the wrong word. Then I think it's.
Can we fix this movie? Like that's what I want to know. What is it that like this movie should be good?
This probably remove one of the team members because there's too many team members.
Too many
But like, I don't know which one you would remove. I guess it would probably be River Phoenix because like he doesn't really have much to do.
Well, you get rid of Dan Aykroyd, the actor, and make River Phoenix.
Combine.
Yeah,
combine
make River
two,
Phoenix that character. Dan Aykroyd's fine. River Phoenix needed the movies at this time, and he would, as a smarter character, I think he would have played a better role as like the cool hacker. Like he would have been like had instead of just being like a dumb hot guy, he would have been a hot guy who is also like the hip hacker. So it would have,
Okay, but River Phoenix was put into this movie to get teenage girls to go see this movie, and teenage boys. I would have, but like like that was the draw. They're like, the reason they have this diverse cast is because it's going to be able to reach to different demographics, right?
And yet we still haven't heard of it.
I know, but that's the thing, is it's also the
but you need a woman character, like
it's the they do have one. It's the crux of the movie.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe I'm just trying to come up with other people to get rid of, but you need a woman character in a movie.
Yeah,
like this.
Well, that's what I mean. The problem with an ensemble cast movie is like it's hard to get to work, and it's rare that you get it to work in a way that it'll go on to make a plethora of sequels. Like, so we've already brought up the Ocean's 11 movies multiple times, but like the reason that those movies work so well is because it's this massive cast of people, and they're all interesting, and they're all fun and cool and funny. But you don't need to spend a ton of time with each character to really understand who they are. And in this movie, I don't really feel like we got enough time with any of them to really understand who they are.
The Fast and Furious movies are actually a lot like this movie specifically, in that they're dumb and goofy and whatever, but they take a bunch of this. So in each movie,
analog hacking.
Well, yes, but in each movie they'll add a new character, right? They'll add some new character that's somebody they got to save, or somebody that can do a specific thing. And then as the movies go on, they get that fucking character bloat. Where like, what are we gonna do with all these characters we've established? So they break them off into small groups. They have the group that's got Ludacris and fucking Tyrese and the girl from Game of Thrones, and they go and they do their techno hacking shit. And then you have over here you have like Vin Diesel and fucking Michelle Rodriguez going and doing their like family, like we're family shit, right? And then you have like The Rock and Hobbs, and they meet up with them and they do all their own shit. But in this movie, they establish 6 main characters in the first fucking 10 minutes, and they all stick together the whole time. So the dynamic is that they're each doing their little thing, but that's why the scenes are so drawn out, because everybody's got to do their little thing. In professional wrestling, it's called everybody's got to get their shit in. Everybody's got to do their moves, right?
In D&D, it's called a moment of cool for everybody at the table. Everybody's got to have a cool moment.
Yeah, but in D&D,
the rule of cool,
an episode can be 4 to 12 hours. I've got to get in and out in 2 hours for this.
In fast food, it's all the ingredients coming together to make a delicious burger.
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that all the ingredients are not coming together to make a delicious burger. At the end of the day, the ingredients are standing out in awkward or weird ways, where like the red peppers that you put on that burger have now fused.
Why would you put red peppers?
Red peppers?
That's what I'm saying. Why is there red peppers on this burger?
I was gonna say more like, I don't like pickles. They'll fucking pull the pickles off. Like it's a necessary ingredient for most people, but some people are gonna get the ick from it. Or tomatoes. I know people don't like tomatoes. I personally love tomatoes.
But they love ketchup. You ever find people
Guys,
hate tomatoes but love ketchup?
Literally was just trying to support your analogy. You don't have to pull my analogy to pieces here. I'm
No,
sorry I said red peppers.
I was agreeing with you. Sorry, red peppers. But
I thought we were having a playful moment.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. Banana peppers are technically red, so
anyway,
play on the play. I don't know.
The issue is that the pizza, at the end of the day, too many people were trying to put too many ingredients on the pizza and not letting those ingredients support each other. And like, I think it's an admirable effort, and I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think that we didn't get enough interesting moments with each of the characters for us to understand who they were without it really having to be stressed that like he's the dumb guy. It's like, yeah, we know he's dumb, but like, what else is more interesting? Is there something else interesting about River Phoenix's character that we're not seeing here? And the unfortunate answer is no. Like, even at the end, his like moment that he could have had to make his character more interesting, he's just the same as he was at the start. He doesn't grow or change throughout. He's just a dummy who wants to have a hot Uzi date or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was an opportunity for them to have something. I mean, it's a funny moment for sure. Like I don't think it's a bad moment. I just think that for that character, it doesn't really do much for us. We already know who he is, and we're doing is confirming it for the third time that he's like a dummy who wants to kiss a girl.
Is scrunchy a word?
Yeah, it's the thing you tie your hair up with before you give a beach.
That's what I thought, but that might be IE.
Oh.
In fact.
That might be right, actually.
I don't know how you spell scrunchy. I've never had to type it.
Maybe both are valid. How do you guys feel about people speaking in code, but then when they say the code word, they say it with inflection so that anyone listening knows that
knows it's a code? Yeah. I watched Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull the other night. Not as bad as I remember it being. And
is that the one with Shia?
That's the one with Shia. And there's a couple moments in that where somebody's really laying it on, like putting a little too much paprika on the on the sandwich there to be like, it's a code, Indy, it's a code.
He's like, I think snakes.
I think it's silly. Like, imagine trying to do that in real life. You would either confuse somebody so hard, be like, why are you saying it like that? Or they would immediately be like, if they're a security guard, for example, they'd be like, this is a code. Who are you signaling right now?
Yeah.
I did like the conceit of getting the password for a voice activated passcode from her just making him say a bunch of things and then them chopping it up and turning it into, like, that's something I feel like I've never really, it's always more grotesque. It's always like, we need his fingerprint or his face fucking, so we cut his head off or pull his eye out or cut his finger off. Either you come with us or we're cutting your finger off, I think is in literally the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
I don't think that in many, unless it's a government building, not a lot of people are going to need like an eyeball scan to get into a room and stuff.
I don't think that technology existed outside of sci-fi and fucking action movies.
I think it exists for sure.
No, during this era. In 1992.
I don't know about this era, but I don't know enough about.
I'm sure it exists.
Security systems.
Sure
I think maybe the tongue scan.
That sounds like something from like a parody of fucking spy.
I think that's another Simpsons gag where like Mr. Burns is going through all these security systems and he like has to like lick a thing. But then like the way that his voice sounds when he plays it, the Ned from Groundhog's Day, it sounds like the Mr. Burns thing that Smithers has on his computer. Hello, Smithers, you're quite good at turning me on. Yeah, like it sounds exactly like that. I don't quite like how easily Ned figured out what was going on. Like, that's just a blunder.
Why do you have my wallet?
Though.
Huh?
The toy dog knocked over the purse, and he realized.
I understand what happened, but that's what Jason was saying before. Like, it's a Deus Ex Machina type situation where like he's fucking around with his voice activated puppy. Why would she leave her bag there when she knows she's on a secret quest?
Yeah.
Like, take your purse with you.
I do like that when they get he's like, hey Doris, you want to go for a ride? And she's still like, okay, I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, at that point I'd be like, no,
I'm good. But anyway, they go for a ride to the toy factory, and then they get there and they're immediately met with the security guard being like, I don't fucking know who you are, dude, and you don't have a code to get in, and you're just yelling about how this girl stole your fucking key card. Like,
what would have been great?
That felt realistic.
This is what would have been great, is if Ben Kingsley's character was played by Dennis Leary, and then we could have headcanoned this into being Small Soldiers prequel.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Or it's a Chucky movie fucking spinoff.
Yeah.
They walk by and there's just a Chucky doll in the background, and we're like, okay, this movie's the greatest movie ever.
They're like, Chucky, speak. And he's like, you fucking. They're like, he's gone crazy again.
Yeah, that would have been. I would have liked that more.
I think World War II was my favorite war. It's a line from Small Soldiers. Bill Hartman.
Yeah. I really liked World War II.
Yeah, I think World War II was my favorite war.
And then they spring Ben Kingsley on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a good reveal. I know, Jason, you missed it, but I think that pulling together the magic trick, the sleight of hand move for the aspirin and the coin was like, it immediately made me like, oh, it's him. He's here. And then it pans up and you're like, ugh, Ben Kingsley.
Oh, yeah. I went, oh, yeah, Ben Kingsley's in this, was my exact reaction. Because I remember, like, I knew, I was stoked. I didn't know who he was going to play. I didn't realize he's, like, the bad guy. And I was so confused by, like, so we immediately go from that first scene in the 60s to, like, them in their loft. And Dan Aykroyd is I think the first, or they're in the van, and Dan Aykroyd's, like, one of the first people to talk. And I'm like, oh, that's grown up, that character. I didn't put it together that he had gone to jail and died in prison. And then later I'm like, oh, he died in prison. And then they introduce Ben Kingsley, and I'm like, this character, there's no way, because he seemed like the fucking last boss from Die Hard. He seemed like, what's his face?
He was like a James Bond villain. He was very much. Well, I think that, again, we said this earlier, like they were quoting Bond. I think that when he got to that level, he was like, I'm just going to fully embrace that I am a Bond villain and like put Shark Tanks in my office and stuff.
That's an awesome connection that I didn't put together.
Yeah, I mean, if you love James Bond, but you don't identify with James Bond so much as you do with the villains, when you get enough money, you're going to start being like, you know what, I'm going to make this look like a James Bond villain. So that
shaken not stirred pizza bullshit line has so many fucking it's such a
springboard.
It has such a play towards the rest of the movie that
it's character development.
They couldn't come up with anything else. They couldn't have it be like, hey, I'm making a drink, what do you want? I'd like a dry martini, shaken not stirred. They couldn't do that to have the foreshadowing.
He could have said, get me a pepperoni pizza and a martini, shaken not stirred. He could have said, like, as a joke,
you can't get a margarita from a pizza stop.
Yeah, Pizza Hut don't have margaritas.
I'll be right back, nothing terrible is gonna happen.
He's like, I said martini.
They definitely
was this movie before Waterworld or after Waterworld?
I think Waterworld was after.
94 was Waterworld, or 95. It was way before.
They so again, like you're talking about how there's kind of like jokes throughout, but when he's saying he can't kill him, and then he turns to his henchman guys like, okay, you kill him.
Right. Yeah. That's such a dick thing to say to someone before you get your henchman to kill them.
Kill my friend.
Yeah. If it was your friend, like, he didn't put him in jail. They were committing a crime together, and one of them had to go to jail. And unfortunately, you're the one that stayed back waiting for the pizza, and you got caught.
Didn't get the pizza.
You knew the consequences of your action. You can't be mad at your buddy for not getting caught. Unless there was like an extended sequence where Robert Redford was also in court and like handed Ben Kingsley's character over to the government on a silver platter, like an interrogation sequence or something. But it's like, no, you guys are breaking the goddamn law. Like, you're going to get caught. You're going to go to jail. And like, you can't blame somebody else for that shit. And that sequence at the beginning where he's like yelling his name, and kicks the window open and is yelling. I kept thinking that he was going to yell run. Like, he keeps yelling his name over and over again. But it seems like he's yelling for him to, like, save me! It's like, fuck you, man. What am I supposed to do? Yeah. Gonna run in there and fist fight a bunch of cops? I don't think so.
I'm getting close to the end of my notes. How are you guys looking?
I was listening, but I was just scanning because, like, we didn't go. Kaylin, I know you tried to get it back.
Too hard to go in order.
Yeah, I know Kaylin tried to get it back on that, and we never really got out of the first scene. Like, we never got out of the 60s.
It's because this movie is like too many. There's too many scenes in this movie to go through it story-wise. But it's like, the chunks of the movie are like, they find a box, they need the box has a bunch of powers, and we need to get rid of the box. Keep
track of the things we didn't talk about, and I'll just quickly run down. It's the Gregor character who they meet early on, who seems kind of like an altruistic, like money guy, who him and Robert Redford seem to have a past together, And then he goes to him to sort of be like, you know, I have this problem now with this NSA guys who aren't NSA. And he's like, you should have known. Why didn't, like, you know, you're usually better than that. And he's like, whatever, I need your help. You got the money. So they get into a car together, and then he offers him asylum if he gives him like half of the money or half of the whatever. And then
is that true if you're in the vehicle associated with the
I don't know.
Constellation?
I don't know. I don't think, considering these guys aren't real police enforcement, I don't think that would have mattered. But anyway, he gets killed, and they use Robert Redford's gun, so now they have a literal smoking gun on him as sort of that. And that was those were two sequences we didn't really talk about. It doesn't really matter that much, but that was I found that to be interesting, because the part where they use the gun to kill Gregor, that's Robert Redford's, is the turning point in the movie, where it switches from a fun thriller kind of like, you know, into just the heist begins. They have to figure out who's coming after them and how to get their black box back, essentially.
Yeah, there's a good little sort of like excuse me, Ocean's 11 style moment where, you know, they explain the tech of the room that they got to get into, and Dan Aykroyd's explaining it, and he's like, also it's heat activated, and if you move more than 2 inches per, you know, and you're just like, okay. And he explains it all, and it makes sense. But talk about the weirdest like action sequence you'll ever see in your life is like
just
all
Robert
this
Redford walking as slow as
Redford walking as slow as he can.
What I realized is
like,
this
could
movie...
you hurry it up? And he's like, I can't hurry it up. And he's like walking so slow, like, because he has to. But it's like, what the fuck?
Plays out more like a Mission Impossible movie too. Just, it's so small scale and so like...
It's called Mission Very, Very Possible.
Mission Probably. Mission Probably Okay. Like, right down to like Robert Redford sitting ready to drop into a room, like the iconic scene from the first fucking...
But he has a fishing line to drop the like whatever that thing is. I don't even remember what that...
The heat thing?
Yeah. Was that the heat gauge?
I think it was the thing. They had to make the room hotter, so...
They had to make it body temperature, because then the scanner wouldn't be able to pick them up or whatever. But I'm like, wouldn't your body temperature raise if you're in a room that's at body temperature heat?
I think it negates the sensors. Making the body, like heating the room up, negates the sensors, because they now think. But if there's any movement, that's the other thing that'll set the alarms off. So it's like body heat and movement.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's not determining temperature differential past 98.6 degrees, which is like the human body temperature. Also, did you guys notice, or not notice, but hear that the average human body temperature has been raising? And like human body temperature is like higher than it was.
Do you know what's fucked up about
in real life?
Yeah.
In real life.
Do you know what's messed up about that? If we go like 1 degree over, our brains start to literally cook. So global warming is going to kill.
You hallucinate.
Yeah, global warming.
But it's not like, because it's not like there are people, like, it's like globally. It's like there are people that live in hotter climates, and their body temperature is not higher than ours, because it's like human beings all have the same sort of like primary
all the micro
temperature. Yeah, it's because we've been eating plastic all the time.
Yeah.
We're probably eating plastic right now just talking.
It's true.
Maybe it's the thyroid.
It's probably the thyroid.
It's definitely the thyroid.
So, Kaylin, do you want to... it's probably the thyroid. Kaylin, do you want to tell us about I guess now the final scene, I think, is pretty much where we're at. He like from Robert Redford doing a couple of double bluffs.
Double bluff.
Well, you mentioned the smoking gun, the fake cops, you know, they do the knockout that I think you mentioned earlier, take him to the base. That's when we meet Cosmo, right? Find out he was in jail. He helps some guys with some things or something. I guess the free phone call line from this kind of reminded me of last week's movie, where they were doing stuff with the phones and getting free calls and shit out of it. So that, I assume, was kind of along those lines.
This was
and
more
then he makes
like
a little
they just
joke.
send Dan Aykroyd in to fucking literally just cross the fucking nodes.
Wires across the streams.
Hey, that's why they got him. They're like, you're good at working with a team and also crossing streams. And he's like, God damn it, how much is it paying? They're like, $10 million. And they're like, yeah, I'm in. I don't care what this piece of crap
And
looks
then
like.
he like puts his eyebrows down.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Can I get the franchising rights to sneakers?
Yes.
They're gonna
you
make a
can have-
Robert Redford doll.
He was like, I only want to get paid $10,000, but I want the back end or whatever it's called. Like
I want
Robert
the
Downey
back end
Jr.
and the merchandising rights
Yeah.
to sneakers.
Like how Robert Downey Jr. famously took like a really small, and he was like, I want the fucking this and that, and then now he's a bazillionaire.
Or George Lucas.
Or George Lucas, yeah, classically.
There's also a little bit of a Fight Club feel.
Actually,
with, like,
oh sorry.
Cosmos trying to like erase kind of like debt and credit, or like erase all the information.
I recently learned something.
Slant.
I just wanted to say one thing based on like the merchandising rights thing. I recently learned that Jack Nicholson, for the first Batman movie, he usually would get paid $20 million per movie, but he only took 10 for his role in the first Batman movie, and in exchange for that was I think 10% of the gross revenue of the Batman movie, because he knew it was going to be a big hit, and a certain percentage of merchandising for that movie, but not just for that one movie, for any Batman movie that was made after that.
What?
And
He didn't have to ever work again. Like
yes, he basically made $90 million off of just like making one movie.
Did he get?
Like, right.
Does that mean he gets paid for like Christopher Nolan's Batman and?
I
fucking,
think it was specifically the Burton franchise
like the four
and
movies?
and the Schumacher stuff. Yeah, I think
okay.
there was like the contracts were liquidated and they had to make new ones or whatever. But
he probably
he made a lot of movie off of just being like, this town needs an enema.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he tells him his plan, what he wants to do, throws him out of the car, goes to Liz's. Dawn wants to turn themselves in. Marty's like, we do it our way, and sneak in.
Sneaker in, bud.
We're way. I mean, the last shit from like.
Yeah,
the
we're
rooftop.
past all this. We're now at like the final countdown. When they're like trying to get where everyone's
right. So yeah. He tells his henchman goon to kill him or whatever. Carl, or so then we do the classic, another person that they don't know is there to save the day, and he gives the word Carl now, and nothing. I think, should they have leaned more into comedy with this movie? Like, should they have just made this movie a comedy?
Absolutely, they should have. Especially with Dan Aykroyd, who's a comedic actor. Sidney Poitier at the end of his career, so he doesn't mind doing funnier shit. Robert Redford, who has he's got a great natural, like, I don't know face. And River Phoenix playing a literal idiot. It would have been played as a comedy. Like, I get that it's like a thriller heist comedy kind of hybrid. They leaned comedy a bit more. I think it might have been. And there's jokes all through the movie. Like, it's just not very funny. It's just not very funny. It's like,
also, Sidney Poitier did a lot of comedies, by the way.
True. But he's not like he's in kind of the twilight of his career, so it's kind of like, he could have been a little bit like they could have. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I was just trying to make sure that you weren't saying something that wasn't true.
Did you guys say that you did the thing where you've tried like that exercise game thing where?
But he also he was in his Morgan Freeman phase. Morgan Freeman like in the early 2000s was always kind of like the character in the White House being like, "Sir, I don't know if that's a good idea," or whatever. It's like basically the same sort of like roles that he was playing. Yeah.
It was kind of as like playing the role of God.
Oh, he was in like, okay, so it's like the Jackal. The Jackal is, I believe, a Jason Bourne character. The Jackal is like a Jason Bourne character, but like the movie was before the Bourne movies came out. But he made like a ton of westerns, and yeah, he was doing lots of stuff.
Sorry, Kaylin, what were you saying there? I was like, what were you about to say?
He guides Whistler back. I was going to ask you guys if you played that, and I think Steve, you were mentioning something about it earlier. if you played like that game exercise team building thing or whatever, where like someone's blind and the other person tells them where to go.
Yeah, I've said this to you guys before on the podcast. I used to work as a camp counselor for many years, and we had a lot of games where you had to like blindfold people, and like everyone else would have to tell them what to do. And
that's
like,
what I was mentioning about Survivor, and also there's another game on Survivor they play where somebody literally stands at the top of a tower, and the rest of their team of 3 all have blindfolds on, and they have to be led through an obstacle course like this way instead of the ball one is a more relatively new one. It's even hard to explain, but you're literally in a ball like the diagram of man, you know, but you're like, you know, going like this in a ball. And
the Venturian man, or
the Venturian man. And the other 3 people are blindfolded and they're pushing this ball over like obstacles and stuff. But there is another.
The main difference being is that his whole life is that.
His whole life.
Except now he's driving. The thing is if you're blind, you would never have learned how to drive, right? So not only is it like he's blind, but
he's also like, I don't know what any of these buttons do.
Yeah, like it's like his first time driving a car. Unless he does it all the time. And he's like, all right, guys, let me drive and just tell me how to, just in case we're ever in a situation
just tell me
where
how
I
to
need
get
to
through
drive.
the fucking streets of, you know, they're in San Francisco in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I liked how specific they were being. Those like, you know, do 2 notches down kind of thing, like because obviously he wouldn't know.
Yeah, he wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't be able to do that though.
No.
Like if I had to be describing to a blind man how to switch gears and shit and like how to put it in reverse, I would not be able to remember how many down, reverse, and drive was.
Yeah, but these guys are sneakers, Steve. Okay, so they know.
I forgot their sneakers. Yeah. I did like the part when he gets thrown out of the car and in the background, like slightly out of focus, you just see Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
That's how you know you're in San Fran.
But it's also like it was kind of a cool sort of visual because it's like, you know, crime. They're criminals. Turns out that they're from Alcatraz.
But Marty gives Cosmo the briefcase, runs off. It's empty. And then so they're back at the home base celebrating. James Earl Jones' character, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, shows up.
Darth Vader.
And
he's called Anakin Skywalker.
So he's trying to clean up this little mess that has happened, and this box and what it can do. And then they make an interesting comment. So again, you guys were talking about how, like California, where he was talking about crazy things, and then, you know, later on, it's like, okay, well, that's true. In this, they talk about spying on Americans, and then we have, you know, that's true as well with the Patriot Act or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, like and then there's like all the other conspiracy stuff littered throughout. Like me and my weird conspiracy-minded ways is worried that some of that shit's true as well.
Some of it might be. We're not gonna find out for 20 years what's real and what isn't.
Yeah. So one day, Kaylin will all be looking back on these podcast episodes and being like, "I can't believe Kaylin was right about all that shit."
That sneakers episode really sucked.
Yeah. I don't know how they talked for over 2 hours about the movie Sneakers.
Yeah, I did not expect us to go a full episode's length, especially when we got through Event Horizon so clean and crisp.
They all get their wish though. Name cleared, Winnebago.
It was a cute moment though. Like it was fun, you know. Them all.
The lady, the agent's phone number. You guys mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. I did like that.
Goodwill. There's the charities that get the donations, right?
Yeah. I did like that. After everybody's like coming up and telling James Earl Jones like what they want, he's like, "And what about you? What do you want?" And she's like, "I don't want anything really. Like, it's fine."
She says, "I got it already," and that the payoff is her saying multiple times through the movie, "We're not getting back together," but heavily implied that she got a good version of the man that she wanted all along. That's how I took that.
Yeah, no. What I mean to say is the whole bit was cute. Yeah. That whole moment was a cute bit.
I agree. Good payoff moment to an earlier joke.
But again,
that was like, yeah,
it's just a little bit cookie cutter, I guess, is how I feel about this movie.
So the day is saved, and everybody gets what they want, and literally the movie just ends right there, right?
Yay!
Pretty much, yeah.
So
The
let's
credits
work
start
our
to
way
roll, and we
backwards.
hear ooh, you're like, wow, what a good movie.
What's the song from the end of the first Transformers? The fucking Linkin Park song. That song just plays. Dun, 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 dun,
I have
dun.
like 4 go-tos.
Yeah.
But in
It's,
the end, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it's that
Is that
one. It's the one at the end of the Matrix movie where it's like, "What you say? What you say?
What you say?
Jason, why don't you tell us your final thoughts?
Dun, dun, dun. No, instead it was like flute, 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 flute,
Yeah.
flute, 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 flute,
Sexy saxophone."
Well, I'll tell you, Kaylin, to answer your question. So I did enjoy the movie, watching it in parts, as I did say early in this review. The first half is an interesting thriller kind of thing, and the second half is a neat heist sort of thing. It has a very, like, I didn't do it like Home Alone of, because it kind of like, there's no real the Home Alone of it all. I guess when it's revealed that the NSA agents aren't who they say they are, would be the beginning of
I think
that.
it's like when he opens up the thing and realizes
Yeah.
the thing is like a fake answering machine or whatever. Is like when the movie really starts to like. Yeah.
I just kind of found it to be kind of dry and uninteresting at times. It did handle the hacking stuff a bit more realistically for the viewer, which I appreciated. The cast is the real draw here. There were no real unknowns in this movie. Oh my god, my fucking screensaver came on. There were no.
No,
real...
that was just hackers from last week.
Oh my god, the
playing.
hackers are here.
Yeah.
There were no real unknowns in this movie, so it excels as an ensemble piece. I give it a 3 out of 5. I think that's high. I'm not going to change my rating because I feel like 2.5 is too low for how well made the movie is, like, overall. And I don't think I meant snappy. I don't think I meant I want the movie to be snappier. I think I want them to slow down on some things, because I don't necessarily. I think I say it here. I think overall it's good. It would have been amazing if I was 38.92, but it didn't really resonate with me now. I give it. I give it doing everything but hacking to hack the planet. What went well? The cast. I liked just looking at the people in the movie. They were all great. They all had their moments. They all had the good parts. Even better, maybe it could have been snappier in its delivery. The movie as a whole, I think, is what I mean by that. Like, I don't mean shorter necessarily, just a bit more pizzazz, like more stuff like the Whistler driving scene, I think. And I think we touched on that a bit by saying if it was a harder comedy, that Whistler sequence was fucking... I was actually laughing out loud because of how ridiculous it was. A blind guy driving a van. Wow.
Especially when he's like rolling his eyes for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, does he need to do that?
Also, it needed more Ben Kingsley, because that character was on screen, I was just like, 80s villain, man. So weird.
Yeah. It's like Christopher Walken and Diamonds Are Forever or whatever. Like, I need more diamonds.
Or
diamonds.
Christopher Walken in Batman Returns.
When he's like, I need more diamonds.
Out this building, and you're gonna become
Selena,
a cat.
where are my diamonds?
Selena Guile, I'm gonna put you out of this building. Then I'm gonna touch some electricity. Where are my diamonds? I can't do it, fucking Christopher. I almost had it for a second there, but I can't do it.
I feel like when I do it, it's okay, and then you start doing it, and then mine gets worse somehow.
I think the Tom Hanks impression, the same thing happens. I start going, oh, and then
And I'm like,
I lost it.
Yeah.
All right, I think Steve's next if we're going in reverse order, right?
All right. Well, diamonds.
Diamonds.
I think this movie is. I'm glad that I watched it, but at the same time, I really don't think that I needed to watch it or will ever watch it again. But I'm glad that I did. It's interesting to see movies like this where they're very much a blip in movie making, where people probably realized this didn't work. How do we do this, but maybe better? And I think there are plenty of examples of this done way better and way more excitingly and way more interestingly. We've already said Ocean's 11 several times, but this is sort of like a,
Precursor.
not a precursor, I wouldn't say prototype, but I would say, like, this type of movie has been made since the beginning of cinema, right? Like a ragtag team of people down on their luck, just trying to make a living, and then they get a job that's too good to be true, and they decide to take it on, and it turns out it is too good to be true, and they're actually getting fucked over, and they're being tricked into stealing something very important, and now they have to worry about being eliminated, which is an interesting premise. I just don't think the movie pulled off that interesting premise as interestingly as they could have. There's lots of really good moments in the movie in terms of character interaction and just actors who are all amazing. Like, every single one of these actors has been in a ton of other things that that they're good, but the stuff that they're given to do is not necessarily flexing the muscles that we know they have. I think what went well were those character interactions, and seeing someone like Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier being able to, like, show us that two people are friends, and we just know they're friends based on the performances by these two people. I'm not sure if they were friends in real life. There's a very good chance they were, but, like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. And if it isn't true, then they made me believe that they were friends on screen, which is an accomplishment. It's always nice to see River Phoenix, even though he wasn't utilized nearly as well as he could have been. I think that his, like, 5 to 8 minutes at the beginning of the third Indiana Jones movie is way more exciting and a better example of his acting potential than his entire character in this movie. But he was just supposed to be a cute character, and he was a cute character. So, hey, Dan Aykroyd was Dan Aykroyd. Like, you don't really know. Like, I think my favorite moments in the movie were just seeing him rambling, and, like, the thought process going, like, they just started rolling. Like, like, they gave the script to somebody else, and they're like, if Dan ever starts talking about conspiracy theories, we're going to start rolling, and you just say these lines, and we're going to film it. It'll be great. And it was. What could have been better? I know, Jason, you're saying, like, the movie already kind of felt longer than it actually was. I think that if they did make it a little bit longer and gave us more time to understand these characters and have more interesting moments between them or individually, I think the movie would have felt less long and been more interesting. Sometimes a movie being longer does not necessarily mean that it's more taxing. Sometimes having moments to breathe and explore stuff makes it more interesting, more compelling, and you want to watch it, and you're glad that you watched it. Like, I watched, you know what? I'm not going to bring it up. I watched a very interesting movie the other night that's very long, and by the end of it, I was like, wow, that didn't feel that long at all. But then there are movies that are an hour long, and they feel like you're hammering, nails through your
get it. It's
toes.
called The Complete Owl, okay? I know what movie.
Yeah. Even at hyper speed viewing,
skipping all the music videos, you basically watched 30 minutes of original
and I
content.
watched it at accelerated speed, and I still was like, this movie. So I don't know, my review, I guess, would be that this movie about a bunch of sneakers, they're not that sneaky. None of them are really sneaky. All their sneaking is very loud. So I would say this movie needs to be named something else.
Very nice, very nice.
Like the snuckers. Like, they snuck, but sneak. They didn't sneak.
I like snookers, like the game.
Sure, I don't know what that is, but I
think it's like pool.
It's a variation of pool with all red balls, and it's more about just sinking all the balls.
I believe that's called snooker, not snucker.
Oh, is that not what you said?
I said snucker, not snooker.
It's called Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He's a professional wrestler, okay?
It's me, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, and I'm here to say...
I'm here to say that I was let down by this movie. I was excited because I hadn't heard of it and the names, and I wanted to see it. on the first viewing, I couldn't follow. Like I was trying very hard to follow along, and I was confused. I already watched. I usually do at least 2 views, but I mentioned earlier at the top of the episode that I had to watch it again just to make sense of what I just saw, and then again, like going through the notes, it helped me doing it again. I did it 3 times, and then doing the notes and then going through the notes made me understand a little bit better what was going on, but that shouldn't be the case. You should, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so. All that being said, I give it so for my what went well. Whistler's character was my favorite out of everything. Even better, I put less convoluted, but I also like what you said, Steve, about maybe if it was longer and giving opportunity to like make it more convoluted or something, but
or like explain those moments that are like confusing or seem very easily wrapped up quickly. You're like, wait a minute. Like, just give us more time to breathe on that.
But I give it a pair of Walmart sneakers.
Oh my god, those are bad sneakers, aren't they?
They're fine. They're fine. They're $20.
I mean, they'll get the job done.
Yeah.
For a little while.
31,961.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you're like, wait a minute, the glue on these wasn't as good as I thought.
I'm familiar with those sneakers because Kaylin, when you would have known me in the early days, I was wearing Walmart sneakers because that's literally all I could afford, and I was wearing them in kitchens, and I'm surprised I didn't fucking break my neck. So.
Yeah, they're perfect for kitchen shoes.
They were not non-stick. They're not, because kitchen shoes are supposed to be non-stick. Or non-slip.
Yeah, spider shoes or whatever they
non-slip
call them,
and steel toe is what you're supposed to have in your sneakers in a kitchen. Anyway. Did we do it?
Thanks everyone for joining us. Oh,
we snuck this one in here.
I'm the one dropping the ball here tonight. My apologies.
You're just like, bye.
For Steven and Jason, I'm Kellen.
For Steven and Kaylin, I'm Jason.
For Jason and for Kaylin, I am Steven.
And we just got to ask you one thing. Hey, did you see this
one?
Did
you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
This one?
What a boring
Did this movie lose money?
I do have the numbers here. This movie made so much money.
What?
Yeah. It made $80 million.
But I've never heard of it.
I know, but I told you before, man, that the reason they cast the way they did is to bring in every corner of movie watcher at that time.
Cash grab.